Hi, this is Tasheena.
And this is Jonathan.
And this is We Watch What We Watch, a podcast where I have one simple question. Do we hate ourselves, John? Do we like being sad? Because we chose to rewatch this.
Yep.
Not only did I rewatch it once, I rewatched it again this morning to take my notes. And I'm, again, cried.
I wish I had watched it twice, too, because, this is our rewatch, but I took notes. I only watched it once on the rewatch, and I took notes, and the notes do distract. They take you out of it a little bit.
Yes.
And, what's interesting, I feel like, I guess we'll talk about it more, especially next episode, but I almost feel like the episodes around this one hit me harder than this one did, because, especially the one after, because it didn't, hit me all at once. It hit me, the realization did not fully impact me until the next episode. And so actually, I think that's the one I have more of a connection with. This one, I especially the first time I watched it, it was almost just stunned.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't a lot of time to process. But
yes,
definitely for me, the next episode is really where it hits home.
I'll have to see when we watch the next episode. I probably was like that our first watch through. But this time, knowing how it ends, throughout the whole, I'm glad I didn't take notes last night, because throughout the whole thing,
that's why I wish I hadn't.
There was just an emotional knot in my throat. I just felt this well of emotion building up in me, throughout the whole episode.
Yeah.
Knowing where this episode ends.
Speaking of this episode, it's called Crimson Sky. Mariko arrives in Osaka for the fight of her life. Blackthorn and Yabushige scramble to save their own heads as their options dwindle. So, Crimson Sky was the plan which they abandoned, which was the one big rush military sort of attack on Osaka. I think this episode is very aptly titled because it is no longer an army that is rushing Osaka. It is one woman on a mission, and she is Crimson Sky.
I'll try not to jump around too much, but there's one point in this episode where...
It's tough with this episode not to.
Where there's one point in this episode where John is talking to Mariko, and he goes, he's pissed, and he's like, oh, Lord Toranaga could have sent anybody, have all these vassals that he could send to do his bidding, and he sent a woman, and he's just pissy. And I'm like, yeah, he really doesn't get it. It couldn't have been anybody else.
Yeah.
Some random dude, some random vassal wouldn't have this impact like Mariko
This is all
has.
very intentional.
It had to be her. She is the Crimson Sky here. There's no way this plan would have worked with anybody else.
Yep.
And she knows that.
Just like Hiromatsu. It had to be Hiro.
It had to be him. And I think that is the thing that the people around him understand that John, I don't think, fully grasps. It has to be them because of what they as a person mean. And
to his credit, Yabu doesn't get it either.
Oh, that is true, too. I am glad Yabu's here because he's pretty much the only humor we get in this episode.
Right.
He's our only breaks we get. If not, this would be so heavy. And I
definitely think it's definitely a big culture gap here where and in some ways it's not only it's unique to this period of time in Japanese culture, the position that women hold in the society. And yes, that's something that John, coming from his world, doesn't grasp until later. All right, so let's get into it. We open up with the flashback.
Yes.
To a younger Mariko.
It was 14 years ago.
So after her father has been killed for assassinating the ruler.
And this is her third attempt at trying to die. Because pretty much she just runs into a full-blown snowstorm, barely wearing anything. She has a dress on, I think that's it. And she is visibly pregnant. So that kind of answers our question from earlier. Her son is now probably just 14 years old then.
Yeah.
Which makes his conversation with her even more infuriating later on, knowing that. This is where her and the young priest, who I can never pronounce his name right, they meet. And
Or in Young Pope. Wasn't it the one with...
Yeah, Young Pope was July, yeah.
Yeah.
Where the two of them meet, and I'm guessing this is also where she becomes Catholic.
Yep.
She takes the rosary or the cross that we see around her neck.
So he's just talking with her about how he's also faced struggles and hardships even as young as he is. And he says something key, which is that he believes that God spared him for a purpose, which is like what we've been talking about this whole time, like having this purpose. And so I think that resonates with her now, but definitely later.
Oh, very much speaks to Marco. Yeah.
So it ties all the themes together, and he gives her the cross and tells her, for when you have no words and need something to hold on to. And she doesn't say we're in this whole exchange. So I think that also is like, you can see like how she was pulled into this faith.
Yes.
In this vulnerable moment, like that is what she needed. The last remaining survivor of this disgraced family, not allowed to die.
Yeah, can't get the justice that she wants to. She feels like she cannot continue the fight that she thinks her father would wish for her, not knowing that this is actually what he wanted for her.
So, nice touching scene there. We go to credits, the intro, and now we're on the boat to Osaka. John, Mariko, and Yabu.
Yeah, and pretty much this whole episode is in Osaka. We do not see anywhere else or Toranaga in this whole episode, even though his shadow looms large.
Yep. John's trying to figure out what Mariko's doing there. She won't tell him. He tries to get one last dig at the Portuguese. Oh, there's the black ship. Cheating guys on trade, and what good friends they are. But what's interesting, I feel like, so this episode is definitely, I think, where John is at his lowest and least in control. Like he sort of has no real options left, and he's still trying to, go on this Portuguese thing. Oh, we got to fight the Portuguese. Fine, I'll get Yaba to help me fight the Portuguese. He's like going back to his default mode. Oh, Catholic bad. It doesn't really seem to me that he's like has a whole lot of fire. It is everything he talks about kind of half-heartedly. Like I feel like you can kind of tell that he doesn't really buy it as much as he did before, because he was very passionate. He was very passionate when he first landed.
Yes.
He's saying the same words now, but there's not the same passion behind them. He's just sort of going with it because he feels like he doesn't have any other options. So that's just something to...
I would agree, yeah, because you see when he's passionate later with Mariko.
Yeah.
And there's definitely moments where he could have been, like with the meeting with Ishido, he just like, yeah, but it was like, we're done, and he just kind of goes with them. So there's definitely moments where he could have been more vocal, more passionate, and he wasn't, and we don't see it until he realizes what Mariko's planning to do.
So they're arrive at Osaka. Yep, it's like, I hate this fucking city.
This fucking city.
Sort of mirroring what Hiro said on episode 1 or 2. They get they're escorted to the castle. I just wrote awkward. I forget what that was for. Lots of awkward meetings there.
It did have, I didn't take much notes about this, but it was definitely an awkward vibe. John's like, not sure what she's doing here, what the plans are. And she just kind of like, see you tomorrow. Like, goodbye.
She meets some of the other ladies who are there, Toranaga's wife and wives, and they've still been there. They're hostages along with everyone else.
Yep.
But they've been downgraded to lesser rooms.
Yeah. And Mariko mentions that pretty much Yoshido has at least one family member from like each of the regions. Like he's holding everybody hostage.
And also I think not just them, but just other
important people.
Because there's other families, it's all their vassals, right? Every important family, they have somebody.
Yep.
And what's interesting is when she talks to Toranaga's wives, they seem to know whatever Mariko knows, they seem to know too. Which again I thought was interesting. From like when he first escaped, these 3 women in his life are the only ones that he actually trusts with his plans.
Now he just has these 3 ladies, which honestly, I think he did some good choosing. They seem like strong ladies.
Yep. And also, a lot of the women in the story really understand the duty of them in relation to their lord a lot more than many of the male characters do.
Yes.
Usually they get a lot of ego getting in the way.
Yep. Oh, we see that with the Shido.
Brief cut of the Catholics talking about Tornaga. No, he's planning something, but the good priest is like, no, man, his vassal killed him. The hero killed himself right in front of him.
John's not in his favor anymore. I think he's just here for his own means,
What I wrote down, though, is that there's nothing really consequential here, and I think this also kept throwing me when I first watched it because I kept expecting them to do something. What I realized is these Portuguese people are just here to comment to the audience.
Yes.
Oh, Toranaga's planning something, blah, blah, blah. But they never do anything with them. Like, oh, they're just here to talk to the people who are lost.
Interesting. Yeah, they are kind of almost like a Greek chorus.
Yeah, that's all that's what they did last time they showed up. And this time, like, oh, okay, so they don't matter.
Not really.
No. Now we get Yabu and John together. So they're getting ready to meet the council. Because again, Yabu is here to surrender the cannons to them.
Yes, that's his official purpose, yes.
And as a side hustle, he's trying to offer something to Ishido to keep his head afterwards. So he's going to try and offer up John, the barbarian. So they're like dressing him up. He's teaching him how to bow, right?
I know, anytime these two are together, it's just a joy. They're so funny together.
So they go off to meet the council. They run into the Christian regent, Kiyama.
Is that how you spell Kiyama?
Kiyama, yeah.
Pretty sure I wrote it all different types of ways in my note.
And what's interesting, so this is John's first face-to-face interaction with this guy.
Because he hasn't talked to any of the Christian regents. They just been after him.
And so he's the main, symbol of the Portuguese presence here.
Yes.
And what's interesting is Kiyama starts speaking to him in Portuguese.
Oh, yeah. I was like, wait, where did that come from?
Which makes sense. And we've seen him talk before with the church people. But what I thought was interesting is as soon as he starts speaking in Portuguese, it's much, when they're all speaking Japanese, it's very like formal and everything is veiled and they're like all this subtext. When he speaks to him in Portuguese, they're just like very direct. All pretenses have been dropped. All formalities dropped.
Yeah, I wonder if that's freeing in some ways.
Yeah, I think so. It's like, and I think that's why I chose him to speak to him in Portuguese, not in Japanese. Also, they wouldn't be overheard, but
pretty much he's like, you don't need any pilots here. Like, you're of no use.
Pirates.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting he thinks he's a pirate.
Yeah, so this guy's basically just like, yeah, you'll be mine soon and you'll be dead, heretic. And John's like, how you enjoying all that silver lying in your purse? And Kiyama basically just admits, yeah, I don't really care about matters of faith. I'm more of a student of trade. It's like, yep. So he basically just admits that, yeah, I'm just here to profit off the Portuguese. Yep. So they have that little thing. So that there are people, that John's situation is kind of dire because, if he can't convince Ishido then to bring him on, this guy's he's eyeing him. He's rubbing his hands together. Which
makes it even more surprising that he just kind of let Yabu lead and he doesn't really say anything.
Yeah.
Because...
Yeah, so they go in front of the council.
Well, council-esque. It's more Ishido, Ochiba.
I think it's because the veil has been dropped on who's really in charge.
Because they're the other ones are in the audience.
Yeah. And I guess this isn't their standard private meeting. This is like a sort of like a formal hearing where other people can approach the council. So yeah, the layout's different. They're all dressed fancy.
Layout says a lot.
It's basically just Ishido up there with Ochiba. Yeah. Yep.
With her son in the background because they talk like
their son in the background, which is the key. Not in the front, in the back.
The background. Because they're talking for him. Oh, the heir doesn't need this. The heir doesn't need that.
Yep. Yabu makes his case, tries to barter John for his life. But Ishido's basically just like, the heir has no use for a barbarian. You're done. And so Yabu's just like, oh, well. Tells John, like, we tried. Which is just like, what?
Especially what we see next with Mariko. You just see how much Yabu is kind of out of his depth, especially with talking and using his language to convince Ishido.
Yeah, it's very like, it's not very eloquent. He doesn't really have much conviction. It's just sort of, it's sad.
Yes.
It's just sad. Even for Yabu, as scum as he is, he's just like, oh, Yabu, come on. He's like begging for his life, but effectively. And John's not doing much. He's sort of resigned to it. And so it's just like, the whole thing's just like sad and a little bit pathetic.
Which really compares to how powerful Mariko is.
Because then,
Woo-hoo.
boom, Mariko comes to the door wearing this gorgeous white and red gown. She has like a presence about her.
Her air.
Movements.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just putting these together was very smart. Yeah, because they're very tonally opposite. And all I wrote down was stunning.
Yeah.
That's why it's like, oh yeah, this is Crimson Sky, which I also think that the red on her outfit is also meant to sort of tied to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a lot happening in this conversation.
Because there's a lot of pleasantries where there's a lot of meaning hidden beneath the surface.
Yeah, because basically she was like, why have you come here? Toranaga's going to show up here in a few weeks anyway. And yeah, they're doing some pleasantry like, oh, well, we'll have a poetry competition, which Ochiba proposes.
A little poetry slam in the middle of this. In the honor of the Taiko's late wife. Because they're having a poetry competition. And she's like, can you give us the first line? Yep.
Did you write down what the first line was?
Nope. I did not. It was just very bleak, almost like a essence of winter is the feeling I got.
They mentioned a leafless branch, which gets brought up again a couple times. And so, they're like, come to this poetry thing later. And then she's like, I cannot. And I'm like, huh? Because I won't be here. Like, what are you talking about? I came here on orders from my lord, Toranaga, to get his wives and leave. So I will be leaving. And everyone's kind of stunned because, again, they're hostages here. They can't leave. But they can't say that.
They can't say that.
They can't admit that they're hostages.
And that's what she's doing. She's calling out the fact that they are being held captive there. Because why is it an issue?
Yep.
Why is it an issue?
I should be able to leave. And Ishida tries to deflect. Well, I mean, Toranaga's going to be here in a couple weeks anyway. So
he hasn't seen his son, which, by the way, is his youngest wife had the baby.
Yep.
And he hasn't seen his son yet, which, honestly, I understand that. It's like, I don't have long left to live. Maybe I should spend time with my family.
Exactly.
And then the burn from Ishido, because he asked, like, pretty much what is Toranaga up to? She's like, he's mourning his son.
Yep.
And he's like, oh, well, he has others.
Yeah, that I think was a really important line. Because right after Mariko looks at Ochiba, and her whole thing is protecting her son.
Her son, yes.
She lives only for her son, basically, at this point.
Yes.
And she says as much later.
And the fact that Shido was just so dismissive of his child dying.
Yeah, he has others.
Oh.
Ooh, bad look. And so that's what Mariko's here to do, is to put these little cracks in that relationship. Because
the whole thing starts off with her congratulating them on their impending marriage, which Ochiba's like looking off to the side like, I guess so. So, just a lot of build up to this moment where she is like, bye, I'm leaving tomorrow.
I am leaving tomorrow. I have to, because my lord has given me this order. I have to fulfill my duty. And he tries to, like, interrupt her.
We're going to do a formal review.
The matter is closed. And she's like, the matter is closed when you let me speak.
Yes, because he keeps going, you have bad manners. That's why we need a formal review, because of how you were acting. And then she's like, no, bitch, you're the one who has bad manners. She like throws it right back at him. She's like, can I say it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I am no peasant to be trodden on. I am the daughter of a Keki Jinsen. You cannot hold me captive or hostage. My line is of samurai for like 1,000 years. I am free to go as I please. And she looks at everybody. She goes, and so are you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm joking. I'm joking up. So,
slam dunk.
She nailed it perfectly.
Yep. And this, if you've been listening to us and or watching the show, you know that the last time we really heard her talk about her heritage was that really awkward dinner with Buntaro and John, where she talks about, and Buntaro talks about, this traitorous line, she's from scum basically because of this. And she hid this from John. And so you can tell it's something that I'm not ashamed, it's not something she brings up.
Yeah.
Right? because that shame is there, and she's been trying to end her life. And for her to now come in and be like, no, I am the daughter of Jinsai. I can't pronounce the first name.
And there's a couple important moments later where this gets brought up again.
Yeah. She is like, she has fully embraced her purpose.
Yes. Because, I don't think she was ever ashamed, but of course, since like the outside world
politeness
sees it as a disgrace, a shame.
Now she's out. She's...
Yeah, because she couldn't really fight it before. But here she's like, no.
Yeah,
I am proud.
No peasant to be
especially
proud of. That's...
saying this in front of Ochiba, because her father is guilty of killing Ochiba's father. So to proudly say, like, I am his daughter in front of her, I think especially is noteworthy.
Also, I think her saying, I'm no peasant to be trodden on. Remember, Ashido is from like lowly upbringing, right? And that's why like he came from nothing, he has nothing, and he was talking about, want to bring one of his friends on the council, and someone was like, oh, stink of peasant. Like, I think that's a jab at him too. Like, my line's been samurai for 1,000 years. Who the fuck are you?
Exactly.
You're nobody.
Where he's telling her she has bad manners? Go fuck off, Ashido.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Done with his shit.
Because, and it really shows here, because women are very limited in their agency.
Yes.
Language is very important, and Mariko knows that, and she is a master at language. Like with the poetry. Here, like you said, she chose these words with purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Every line had purpose to Shido, to Ochiba, and to all the vassals and ladies around her that are being held hostage.
Yep.
All of this had meaning.
So to exit this scene, I just wrote down swoosh.
Swoosh.
Because of the little turn she does with her gown. Every time she turns it, whoosh. Perfect.
The amount of hours this actress must have been practicing.
The risk of sounding... The risk of sounding incredibly cringe. Slay girl slay.
I mean, it's appropriate here. This is definitely a slay.
All right. So now we're back at their house. Yabu's there, and Yabu's freaking out.
He's so pissed.
What are you doing? Why are you doing this? What are you going to accomplish? But also, can I help? Why won't Toranaga tell me his plans? Tell me. I want to help, please.
He's so pathetic here because he's like, even his words, like he's like something about you're just standing here in your stupid body. Like, I don't know, like even the way he's like yelling.
Are you stupid?
Yeah, it's just weird, and especially after like her just like boom mic of a of a speech, and Yabu, like we got a lot of that's why.
And then he insults her poem, and I wrote down because he's basic.
He is basic. I love that.
Who rhymes about leafless branches in spring? What a stupid poem. It's like, wow. Taking it very literally.
He doesn't understand poetry.
So he leaves, and then her and John talk. He also doesn't grasp the full picture. He gets a little bit more than Yabu, though. So she talks about, she basically lays it out. If he prevents me from going, he admits that everyone here is a hostage by force, and there is going to be a revolt against him.
Yep.
But if he does let me go, every other hostage family is going to ask to do the same. And I think at this point, or is this later, at some point some of the other women come to stay with him because...
Yeah, I'm not sure. That might be a little bit later. Yeah. I just marked down that Mariko at this point asked John, for her sake, that he not involve himself. I think especially tomorrow when she's trying to leave. Like, do not intervene.
Yeah, for how much you value me and our relationship, just please don't intervene. Isn't this where he says Toranaga, could have sent...
No. A little bit later.
Later.
Yeah.
All right,
I have that written down.
Get a brief scene with Mariko and her son.
This is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm like, little twerp, sit down.
Yeah, I wrote down, he's on the Jesus juice.
Yes, because they start talking in Japanese and, ask her not to do this. And she's like, pretty much, I have to. And then he switches also to Portuguese to signify, like, pretty much going against your religion. Like, you're placing Toranaga. Yeah.
Not as a
because
son.
He's going to marry Kurama's granddaughter?
Yeah, Kiyama's granddaughter.
He's like, since we're under the banner of heaven, we're going to join together. We're a family. I'm going to marry his granddaughter. And he is asking you not to do this, to wait.
Mm-hmm.
And she is like, we are under your Lord Liege, Toranaga. He will decide who you're going to marry.
Yep. Yeah, I don't answer to Kiyama. I answer to Toranaga. And Toranaga commands me do this.
And it's strange, even though, like, it's not like Kirama, like, represents Christianity, but it does kind of in a way.
In a way, yeah.
She is placing Toranaga above this. What she gets out of this.
Because she's always been, that's why everyone's always been asking, where do your lords reside? So with the church, with Toranaga, with John.
Toranaga said you can't have two hearts.
Yep. And now you can see she's laser focused. She's
chosen.
Or her son. And she basically has to reject all of them. She tells John to stay out. She rejects Kiyama's call to stop. And
her son says that he's ashamed. And he's like, people say these things and I'm ashamed of our name. And that she speaks up. She goes, don't ever be ashamed of our name. And he's like, well, if you go through with this and if you are disgrace and they take you, I am no longer your son.
Mm-hmm.
And
and she has to push past it. And so you can say, like, I think that was the last loyalty tested is.
Because this is so different from the way they were talking to each other at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Like, they love each other so much. And he was like, hold on to, and I'm like, man, what journey has he gone through during this time where he's just like...
Extremism comes for us all.
Yeah, he's like puffing up his chest and like, no, I'm not a mama's boy anymore. I'm a man. Yeah, I found Jesus and I'm going to marry this girl.
Want to marry me a trad wife?
He's gone down the Fundy pipeline.
Yeah, exactly. So he's got lost another one to the Fundy pipeline.
But yeah, this was definitely the last test before we get to tomorrow.
Because now it is morning and they are getting ready to leave, just like she said they would. And this whole scene is great. That
it's so intense.
Music going.
It is so intense. This whole scene,
but not like it's not action. It's just tense is the word. It's like you're just like clenched up. What is going to happen? And it's moving very slowly, but with a lot of drama brewing beneath the surface.
Because as polite as their words are, you know where everything's going to lead to. Yep. Because she's trying to go along, and Ishido's guard are like, "Excuse me, Lady Mariko."
Yeah, she's surrounded by all these samurai in full armor, which is always great to see. Cause it looks so cool.
And the samurai had some great moments.
Yeah.
In the scene.
So, and you can talk about loyalty on display here at all angles. These are people who have sworn to live and die by Toranaga and by her.
Yep.
And they're here to serve her. And so you can feel the power emanating off of her by the loyalty of those who surround her. Like, that's what gives her all this power. So it's really impressive to see. So yeah, they're met by the guards, say you cannot pass without a permit. I'm like, well, we're supposed to be able to come and go as we please. Like, nope, these are the rules. We cannot let you pass. And she says to her guards, please kill him. And what's so funny is, they're all just standing around there. Yeah. It's not like it's happening really fast. They go, okay. They go up. He goes up to the guy, bows. So that was funny. And then he kills him.
He just kills both of them. So
and I mean, they try to resist, but wham, wham.
So quickly.
Yeah, the skill on display.
And then he wipes the sword, puts it back in, and I'm just like...
And then they move on. They're met by a bunch more people. And also, and the thing is, they're like in an impossible situation here because they're going to leave this castle, but they're surrounded by walls, which everybody else is on. All the lords are there. John's there. Everybody's like watching. They all assembled way in advance because they want to, what's going to happen.
I would be there too.
So they literally have an audience of the whole castle, but there's also like archers. Her head guard guy, he gets hit in the neck with an arrow, so he's dead. He turns to the second one. Will you take command, please, my lady? And then he goes forward, and then they charge, and they're all fighting. Eventually, they all get overwhelmed and killed. And there's one of her guards left, and he's wounded, and he turns back to her and just says, "It's been my honor to serve you." And then he dies.
I believe this is the point where Mariko turns to the Christian regents and is begging them, sirs, let me pass. Tell them to let me pass. Yep. And they're like, we don't have that power.
Yep, we cannot. Those are not our men. They're Shidos. Mm-hmm. And then she says, then we truly are hostages. We are trapped here.
Yep.
Ken was like, I'll call a meeting.
Everybody's like, I'll call a meeting.
Yeah, they agree they're powerless. And now it's Mariko's turn.
Mariko's turn. And while they are giving her the weapon, they're like, do not harm her because they know what happens if she dies.
Damn, I looked up the name of this weapon in between. Now I've forgotten it again.
I heard it. And you're right. It's
Naginata?
So close. Yes, like because it's so close to Nagakado that it kept messing it up.
So she has her big pole arm, and now she goes after them. But yeah, Kiyama shouts out, do not harm Mariko. So now they're basically just like trying to keep her like contained. And there's like 12 of them, all with spears. And so she's swinging around. She actually gets a couple of them.
Yeah, she kills a couple. She gives everything. She gives everything until literally she drops down and she lets go.
Yeah, this part I was tearing up a bit too because she's just like yelling,
like all that
screaming, all that emotion. And the only other time you've seen that is the scene after Buntaro had hit her and she was yelling at them to get out. This and that were the only two times that we've seen this much emotion come out of her. And yeah, but she can't break through and they can't kill her. So it's like,
yeah, stalemate in essence.
And she says, she just yells out, it's not possible to fight through all these men. Which I thought was a little, these men are just stopping me from doing my duty. It's like, these men. Yeah, preach. But basically she's just sort of, this is almost like a performance for the crowd, for the audience.
Ooh, Ochiba's there too,
Ochiba's there too. And so she's saying, like, it was my duty to leave. It is not possible for me to fulfill my duty because of these people. Mm-hmm.
And she's saying this also to the wives, like pretty much apologizing to them, like, I'm sorry I couldn't fulfill this.
Therefore, because I could not fill my duty to my Lord, I will take my life at sunset in protest. And she brings up that as a Christian, it's a sin to commit suicide.
A mortal sin. Yeah.
Mortal sin, yeah. So she pleads with Kiyama as a fellow Christian to second her because if he delivers, the killing blow, then it's not technically. And he says he will. We'll see how that holds up. And then she goes back. Great scene. The culmination of all this. What a show. Now we get the regents. They're all bickering about what to do. They're like, oh, she's not going to do it. And she was like, no, she will. I know Mariko. She's going to do it, and we'll all be disgraced by allowing it.
Cheekbones. Isn't this a little dramatic? And Ochiba just throws dagger eyes on him. Shut your trap, fuck boy.
Yeah, so basically the highlight, it's a lose-lose, which she had pointed out previously too, like no matter what. Now we get John has been summoned to meet the heir, quote unquote.
Yeah, the air quotes.
But really it's Ochiba, and then Mariko arrives
to translate.
And Mariko basically tells John, okay, this is a ruse.
Yeah.
She wants an excuse to speak with me, so just let us talk. And Ochiba basically tells her, stop these games. No more games. And Mariko's like, I'm not playing no games. You're the one playing games. You're the only one who can stop the games you accuse me of playing. But they talk about their life growing up. She mentions how Mariko was her happiness.
Oh, yeah, I wrote this down because she's like, oh, Mariko, pretty much like the perfect example of womanhood. She knew what to do, where to go. But our fathers were enemies, and their misery was our misery. But I had Mariko. She was my happiness until she was sent away. So on the second rewatch, I don't know why, this scene in particular really got to me. Because when we first meet Ochiba, I don't know, I thought she was more villainous.
Yes, because she had that air about her.
And it was really here that I'm like, oh, she's not. She's not at all. She's, like Mariko said, fear is her enemy. She's just scared.
Yeah, she's hurt.
Her father died. She was betrayed. Her sister was pretty much taken away from her. And they can never have that again because it was her father that killed her father. So our father's misery was our own.
And still is.
Still is. And just also talking about how after those years, like after this happened, the Mariko she became was not the one that she remembered. That pretty much she was trying to become a martyr after what happened.
And then Mariko leaves with, accepting death isn't surrender. And she says flowers are only flowers because they fall.
Yeah, that comes after Ojaba tells her, how will piercing your heart protect your son? Because that's Ojaba's whole thing is protecting her child. And she kind of jabs at Mariko for this because they both have sons. And I think this is where Mariko's like, we're done. After she says it, we're done. And then she says so that's flowers are flowers because they fall.
All right, so now we get John and Mariko talking.
This is where this happens.
So he's still either doesn't get it or just he's still on like your life is what's most important.
Because she's, again, like life and death, same thing.
Yeah,
they both have meaning.
Yeah, life and death are the same. Both can have meaning and purpose. In the end, he begs her to live. Like, if not for, okay, you won't live for God, for all these people, will you live for me? And basically, like, I don't want to lose you.
And this brought back the moment where when Toranaga got mad at her, like, what are you and Engine are like to each other? Because he knew this moment would come. If they're in love,
then she might live for him.
Might live for him. So he had to know if John asked this of her, she would walk away.
And she does. She walks away.
She does.
So we get a quick scene with Yabu, and he's approached by his little second person, and basically says, "I have a message from Ashido." He says, "Your offer of life instead of death, of service instead of death, is accepted, but you must do something for him."
Of course.
And we don't see what that is yet. It's like, oh boy, Yabu.
Now is kind of the montage of setting up.
Yeah, they're setting up where she's going to do the ritual.
And
she's the priest.
Oh, yes. So while she is doing her confession to the priest, John goes to one of the, the gardens with the lines that are drawn in waves. And he just puts up one line through all of it.
Yep. Just through it.
It's like this almost last little rebellion. I don't know. It's just, and he just keeps staring at this line.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what this signifies in his mind as he's going through this. Like the line. Yeah, he said it can be an act of like, sort of like, oh, fuck this.
I think it started out that way.
Because
he's so angry when he
he starts angry. It's like, man, I'm trying to lie to this.
But he just keeps staring and
keeps staring at it very intently. And it's montaged over Mariko and the priest are going through like a confession. And it's another sweet scene because we saw in the flashback that they've known each other for like 14 years now. And so they talk about, he's like, well, I don't have all the things, all the Catholic things, to do the proper confession. And she's like, let's just drink from an empty cup that signifies, our friendship and all the years we've known each other. They do that, and it keeps cutting back to John, and he's just looking at these lines in the sand, and he's thinking. So now it's sunset. Mariko's preparing. She leaves a poem as a final statement, and John's there sort of watching from the background, and now it's time. And so she asks Kiyama to second, but he is not there.
Fuck this guy.
Yeah. In the end, the church abandoned her.
Yes.
Represented by Kiyama, so Kiyama's not there. And so she takes off her cross, because if she's going to die, then I guess it's not as a Catholic because it's a mortal sin, right? So she casts that aside and is preparing to go ahead with it anyway. And at that point, John comes in. Ooh.
Yes.
And he says he will second.
Because whatever was going on through his mind, staring intently at that line, and he might not even still really understand her, but her whole thing has been, his cage has been his selfishness and his quote-unquote freedom. And at least in this moment, he can step aside and and be there for her. He's put
Yep.
his own
Yes,
wants
exactly.
aside, his selfishness aside, and giving her the end that she wants, because she doesn't want to go. Nobody wants to die stabbed in the gut like that.
Yeah, there's so much going on here. Not only is it the thing with having a second the moral sin, but it's just dying alone. Like,
Yes.
you don't want to be alone. And
She would
at
be
that
by
point, she was very
herself.
much
Yep.
alone. And yeah, it's like you're right, he may still not understand. And I think that's important that he doesn't, but decided to do it anyway because he knew that's what she needed.
I listened to a few minutes of the podcast, and they said that this was the most loving act he could have done for her.
Yeah, I wrote down, find a man that'll second you. Like John does.
And yeah, so because
If you committed seppuku, honey, I would second you.
the love, because especially in our Western mentality, like there's a part of me that looks at this like, I don't want her to die,
Right.
and I'm kind of like John in a way.
And he still obviously doesn't, but and he says, hell is nothing I haven't known. Put it from your mind. Like, don't think about that. I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah.
You could tell we're very emotional people.
It's just weird that this is a loving act. It's so
I know,
crazy.
That's
But
been
it
the
is.
craziest thing about this show is all
It
these
is.
things that would normally be you can be balking at or just be weird or uncomfortable or like
Yeah.
why or you're not like all this stuff. You've been sold on it so completely that it works and it makes you feel things that you would never expect to feel for what's happening on screen.
Because we've seen a couple people screen die by seppuku. How do you say it? Seppuku?
Seppuku.
Seppuku. And it looks awful.
Yes.
And I'm like,
Yeah, because you basically taking a short knife, insert it to
like,
one
cut
side of your
yourself.
belly, cut yourself to the other end, and then someone chops your hand off to end it.
Which I'm like,
But,
I understand now why they have a second. Yeah. And I'm just like, I remember the first time watching this going, she's not going to die, right? She's not going to die.
Yeah, you're thinking at this point, like,
But we saw
I mean,
Hero die, so it's like, I don't know.
Like, yeah, I think, oh, yeah, she's going to do it. But right before she's about to take the plunge, she hears a noise. Because they've been separated. They, like, closed the door to the rest. Because that's the thing is, there was all these people watching, but they're in a sort of a separate room looking on. And then right before she closes the door, so it's just her and John.
Yeah, so just be the two of them there.
But anyway, the door opens, and here comes Ashido with his stank face on. And just
Being
tosses
shitty.
a letter at her. It's like, there's your permit to leave.
Yep. And then, just like Ochapaz and Marco, all of them said, as soon as he gives her the papers, some ladies walk up to him going, can we have our papers?
Yep. So just what they said would happen. Everyone's like, can we leave? Can we leave? Can we leave? Can I leave? Hello? Can we leave? It's like, yeah, sure. No one's a hostage in
He
Osaka.
looks so pissed.
Yep. So it was a lose-lose for him, but he chose to do was probably the less damaging one, because I definitely think if they had let Mariko die, it would have been, they calculated that it would have been worse for them to let her die over this.
Yeah.
So in a lose-lose, this was the lesser of two evils for them and their purposes. All right, and then I just wrote down, what a cunt.
He
You're
was.
disgusting, disgraceful, like
Yes.
this is pathetic, blah, blah, blah. You're just like, get out of here.
He really is. Everybody's partying. Yeah, Marco's alive. We're going to leave. Everybody's jamming out. She's in her bedroom getting ready for bed. And
Getting ready, and she has you can tell it's just like she thought that was going to be the night she died. So she's sort of, I feel like, still in a state of like,
oh yeah, shock. There's definitely like
hey, I'm alive and I shouldn't be.
a little spaced out. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, door opens. And I think she thinks it was that her son's name.
I honestly don't
She was
know.
like, oh, I'm fine. I don't need anything.
Yeah.
But she turns around and it's John. Mm. So he enters and they share a second night together. Not since that first night.
Yeah.
Because there's been this divide between them ever since then. Even though they sort of made up a little bit afterwards, there's still been where it's that cultural divide he just has not been able to grasp. And so you don't yet know, again, at this point, does he actually understand the culture now? But again, because of his act, we know that he at least understood that this is what matters to Mariko.
Yes, he was able to put himself aside.
Yes, you're right. He put himself aside and he learned to accept that he doesn't understand, but recognize what she wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think with that action, it's the first time they've really been able to connect again emotionally since Buntaro came back.
So we leave the sacks and go over to Yabu.
Yabu on the wall, talking with this poor guard. She's like, yeah,
this guard.
You don't have to be up here. We can take the watch. Everyone's going to be partying. Blah, blah. And Yabu's like, oh, look over there. What? Stabs him a lot. Poor guy.
He did do a look over there.
So, yeah, Yabu kills the guard. And you see some hooks come over the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yabu runs down to another door, opens it up, and lets the assassins in. A whole bunch of them. The last time it was just one when the one tried to kill John. This is a whole gaggle of...
This was a lot.
Basically ninja, but they don't call them that, and they don't dress them so stereotypically. Like,
yes.
It's probably closer to what this sort of group actually was. They give them some sort of name. It's not ninja, but the Western audience will know it as, here's where the ninja come. Because they have some of the tools. Anyway, so all these assassins, Yabu lets them into the compound. Yabu. So they enter here, they kill some more people, and they start looking through the house.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the samurai wake up, they kill them, and they're looking at like a lot of the sleeping women, but they don't kill them, and they don't wake them up. They're looking, and they move on, they look, so you can tell they're looking for someone specific.
Yep. And what was the I guess when the head ninjas, for lack of a better verb, when Yabu was there, he was like tapping his shoulder, like for him, I guess, to wait.
Yeah.
And then when he stopped, Yabu goes in and he's like,
now,
intruder!
Yeah, tries to play both sides here a little. So now everyone's up. They do find Mariko with John. They attack, but they manage to... He has his pistols, so he blows them away. I just wrote kaboom. Because you haven't seen those go off yet, so when it does, it's like, oh, all right, he has guns. So they manage to escape those attackers, and they all meet up.
So it's Mariko, John, Yabu, and Toranaga's wives and his baby son. So all of them are together, and like you said, fighting them off. John shooting.
Yep.
And one of the wives, I guess, says, let's hide it. It's called a dozo. I guess it's a storehouse.
It has big, heavy doors.
Let's go there. They have the heavy doors.
But Yabu's like, no, don't go there. Let's go to the gate, because he's trying to get them. But Mariko's like, no, I cannot be taken alive. And so you realize that's what they're after for here.
Okay, I was
and that's why they weren't just going around killing all the women.
They wanted to take Mariko, because I'm guessing they probably don't want to kill her, because that will definitely
defeat the purpose. Yeah. The whole point is they have to take her alive so that she both cannot leave and cannot take her own life, thereby bypassing this lose-lose scenario for the council.
Yes.
So she doesn't want to get captured, but Yabu, clearly his job here is to get her captured. So that seems to be the deal. Yabu, doesn't reveal anything necessarily, but he gets Mariko in a situation where she gets to be taken alive. So obviously, and we'll talk about this more, Yabu is obviously a little shit. But he he knows that the plan is to take her alive, not to kill her.
Exactly. And I think that's why he probably goes along with it.
Right. Yep. They go to the storeroom against Yabu's wishes. And they seal themselves in. But now they're trapped. And they hear all this rustling outside. And Mariko says they're going to blow the doors open.
Yep. Which will kill them all.
Yeah. Like, well, if they do that, we'll all die because the shockwave, whatever. Everyone's panicking. John's trying to move some heavy stuff to the door. And he's trying to ask Yabu for help, but Yabu is like frozen.
Yeah, he
can't move.
I was surprised. He's just
frozen.
Freeze.
And Mariko, now we got to get through this. Mariko realizes this is the time.
Yeah, because he's not going to get the stuff in the door in time.
And she says, John, let it come. And she walks to the door and puts her back to it.
Yep.
And does says as loud as she can, I, Mariko, daughter of Jinsai.
No, she says, I, Aki, Mariko. She doesn't say Toto Mariko. She says
she says her original family, not her married
original
name.
family. I'm like, to me, I totally missed that the first time I watched it, but this time I was looking for, because I'm like,
I was taking notes at this time, looking up and down, trying to write it down. I wasn't able to get the whole quote down.
Her calling herself her family name, not her husband's family name, and she's like, in protest of what
the shameful attack. And by my death, and the door explodes. And we cut to black. That's the episode.
As it's blowing up, there's this one quick still of her engulfed in flames. Like, and you see her face and her hair's just out. It's weirdly serene and beautiful and awful at the same time. Like, it's just a very quick shot. Probably what John will see.
Yeah.
For the rest of his life.
Ooh. Well, and it could, because so you think going into this, okay, she's going to try and take her life, but when he at the last second gives her the permit, you think, oh, that was the close call. Yes. She's going to live now.
She's going to be fine.
And you can tell the characters think that too. Like, she afterwards is in sort of a daze as someone who wasn't supposed to live.
Yes.
And when John comes to her, like, it's like she chose loyalty to Toranaga, right? And she had to walk away from John. That's what she had to do. And she did it.
Mm-hmm.
And now it was almost like they had a second chance at life. She was able, for a moment, to have her cake and eat it too, sort of, or John, like, she was able to complete her duty. Oh, but I was able to get both. I was able to complete my duty and John is still here.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the moment, they have this happiness of, like, she accepted what she had to do. But by fate allowed her not to have to do it. But she couldn't escape that fate in the end. And she realized that this was her moment.
Yeah.
And that she knew she couldn't be taken alive. Otherwise, it all would have been for nothing.
Exactly.
It all would have been for nothing if she was taken alive. And therefore, this was the only way. It's just to John, let it come. Because sometimes, he, up until the end, he's scrambling. He's trying to avoid death. Him and Yabu are both this way. They're both in their own methods. John with action, Yabu with scheming, are all trying to put off and avoid death. They're all approaching different ways of trying to avoid death. The point is not to die, period. Yabu will do anything to do that. John will take any
John and Yabu are
direct confrontation action. Yeah. It's similar but different, just across different cultures, and they both will do anything. But Mark understands that, that's fine, but there comes a time where it's like, this is my purpose. Mm-hmm. Life and death both can have meaning and purpose. And she realized that this death would have more meaning and purpose than her life would.
Yeah. Not only does she die because of Shido, she saves everybody in that storehouse, including Toranaga's wives and his new son. Yep.
Because if she hadn't taken the full brunt of it, they would have died.
Mm-hmm.
There's no the show's like theme music being played over the end credits. It's just this what do you call it when it's just voice?
Acapella?
Just low, slow song.
Yeah, it's because it's heavy. It's heavy at the end of this. And then next episode is the fallout.
Yep. So obviously by now, if you've been listening to this and haven't seen the show yet, you've spoiled it. But hopefully
it's still worth watching, even knowing.
And hopefully this just shows you how powerful a show it is.
I just watched this episode twice. I was thinking after I watched it, I think episode 8 and 9 has got to be two of my top TV episodes ever. 8 and 9 are just so well done, emotionally powerful, just all of the good stuff. This is all the good stuff was here.
Yep. So we'll be back next week.
Yep. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Episode 10.
Yeah.
Final episode.
The final episode.
All right. Conclude this journey next week.
All right. Bye.
See you then. Watch Shōgun.
Bye.
Bye.